Live on a cloudy, rainy, and warm. It's a Thursday afternoon. Welcome on into the bullpen. I am your host, Adam the Bull, and this is a live edition of the bullpen brought to you by Bet Rivers. If you're not betting with Bet Rivers, what the heck are you doing? Bet Rivers has a great website, or if you prefer to use the app, you can do that. If you want to go, that's what most people do, I'm sure. I'm old school, so I old school that I use I use both, but I like using the website more often. But the app is awesome, and that's what most people go. So if you're cool and hip, you could do that. So many great things that you can bet on pretty much anything at Bet Rivers, including the Masters. And during each round of the Masters, Bet Rivers is offering live betting specials. Visit the Bet Rivers app for full details and discover what bonus awaits each day of the tournament. So you don't want to miss that. So great. I know so many people are into the Masters right now, and you can take advantage of the generosity here at Bet Rivers with the great specials. Speaking of specials, I'm going to have my Bet Rivers parlay tomorrow. The last couple of weeks, we've been doing them live during the podcast on Thursday. And because there's not a lot of baseball games on Thursday and there's many day games, we're going to change it up. I'm going to be giving you 2 parlays a week on Tuesdays and Fridays. So I'll put out some video. I'll put out videos to give you the info on the parlay. So look for that coming out some point early tomorrow, early morning to early afternoon before the full slate of Friday night games. So good stuff. Today on the podcast, got a lot to get to. The Cleveland Guardians come back and win down 5 against the White Sox. The Guardians have a big weekend series with the Evil Empire, the Yankees coming to town. But we got to start with the Cleveland Browns and Nick Chubb. Nicholas Jamal Chubb, our favorite player. Everybody loves Nick Chubb. And Nick Chubb is, I don't know, I was going to say officially going to be back with the Browns for the 2024 season. But it was never officially not back with the Browns. But today, in case you missed it already, the Browns have restructured a deal. I shouldn't say restructure, because when you say restructure, the guaranteed money doesn't really change from year to year. That's what we see, and we saw with Myles Garrett and a few others. But it's really, it is a restructure, but not in the same way. Nick Chubb, they've been able to lower it. So Nick Chubb was supposed to make about $12 million this year. Guaranteed. Well, not guaranteed. They could have cut him and he would have made nothing. He would have made something from another team, but and that was never a realistic scenario. But instead of the $12 million, he's going to get a little over $6 million guaranteed. And with the incentives, he'll be able to make up, according to reports, all the money that he was supposed to make this year. In fact, the way I read it, I think he could actually make a little more if he has, if he gets back health. I don't know what all the incentives are. We haven't seen the details on what exactly it's going to take for him to reach all incentives. But based on the way I read it, unless I'm reading it wrong, it looks like he can actually make more money this way, although less of it's guaranteed to start the season. I think this makes a ton of sense for the Browns. I think this makes a ton of sense for Nick Chubb and for the fans. I think at this point we all assume, we were all talking about, hey, is it possible that the Browns could cut Nick Chubb? And I never thought that was realistic, but there was always a tiny percentage of me that said, I guess it's possible, just because we all love Nick Chubb, just because we think the Browns love Nick Chubb, we know that this is a business, and business rules all, for players often and for teams often. And so because of that, you always thought there was maybe a slim chance. But as the offseason went on, by the time we got to this point, they weren't going to cut him now. Even if there was, I don't think they were ever going to cut him. But even, let's say there was a 1% chance they were going to cut him. by now it went down to 0.00001 because they're not going to do Nick Chubb like that. If you're going to cut him, you cut him, in early March so he had a chance to get another contract early when there's a lot of teams that need running backs. But once you see the new contract today that they've renegotiated, then even that little tiny bit of stress that you had for any possibility of him not being here, or just the fact that it was not 100% settled, that has now gone away. The cap hit for Nick Chubb was supposed to be about $15 million, and now, or I think about 15.7 or 15.8, close to $16 million actually, and now it'll be a little over $6 million. So the Browns got close to $10 million in cap savings. And hopefully Nick Chubb will not lose any money because that means he has a great season. And I do believe that once Nick Chubb gets up to speed, I am highly confident that he is young enough that he will recover. And I think we will see what we saw. A lot of times, and this is possible, we got to be prepared for this. A lot of times it takes a player coming back off a serious knee injury 2 years to be back to the guy he was. And by that point, Nick Chubb will be 29 years old, and maybe he won't be. So maybe he's just pretty good this following season and not the guy who we saw who was potentially on a Hall of Fame track. But I believe that Nick Chubb is one of those special backs, special physically, special everything. Everything about Nick Chubb is special. And I believe that he will have an Adrian Peterson-like recovery and still be great this year, that it won't take. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen the first game he plays. There'll be a little rust, a little, growing pains for him, if you will. But I really, and maybe I'm kidding myself. I could be. Well, I guess time will tell, right? But I really believe that Nick Chubb will be great this year. I believe that. And it might not be to the middle of the season, but I believe it'll happen. Not just good, he'll be back to being great. Mike says Nick will be 31 by that time. No, it's not 31, because when I say 2 years, I mean the 2025 season. And the 2025 season, he will be 29. Yes, he will turn 30 at the end of it, but for the majority of the season, he will still be 29, which is why I said he'd be 29. Just like you saw, look at Breece Hall. Who's younger? But Breece Hall, the Jets, in the 2022 season, was off to a great start. He tore up his knee, and then last year he came back, and early in the season, he looked great. And by the second half of the season, he looked back to himself. And I assume next year he'll be sensational. So it's, so it would be the 25 season with Nick Chubb, which he would spend most of at the age of 29. I want to say 29/30. Fine. But I'm so glad this got done. I'm guessing 99.9% of you are glad this got done. And now we wait and see when Nick Chubb is going to be ready to play. Obviously, they're not going to rush him back. It's possible he goes on. I believe I got to double check this, but I believe I was going to say if they put him on the PUP list, he'd only have to miss the first 4 games. But I think now you're allowed. I think they changed the rule this year where you can now put a guy. It used to be you couldn't put a guy on IR before the season because if you did, he was out for the year. Within the season, you could put him on IR and get him back after 4 weeks, but you couldn't do that before the season. And I believe they changed that rule where I think there's 1 or 2 guys you can put on IR even before the season, and he could still come back in 4 weeks. So however it works out, I don't know. Will Nick Chubb be ready for week 1? Too tough to tell. That would be less than a year from the time of the injury, which is, it's been obviously he tore 2 ligaments in the knee. So it's hard to say that he'd be ready that quick. I'm sure we're not going to see him, even if he is ready to go in the preseason, because why would you waste a carry on him in the preseason? But we'll see when training camp starts. I'm assuming he won't be in the mix in any of the off-season activities, but it'll be really special whenever it happens, whether it's week 1 or week 5 or week 8. It's going to be pretty special. And I'm guessing Nick Chubb, assuming the Browns are at home, even if they're on the road, we know Browns fans travel well, that Nick Chubb will get a hell of an ovation from the fans whenever he returns to the field, as he should. All right, let's talk about the Guardians now. And I'll get to I know people are giving me some questions and comments in the chat. You can do that. You can join me live. I tweeted out a link about 10, 15 minutes ago if you want to ask a question on the show. But if not, I will start reading your comments and questions in a few minutes. Nice win for the Guardians yesterday. Now, it's easy to say, well, they just gave up a ton of runs to a really bad White Sox team. And that's true. That's true. The White Sox are really bad, and the Guardians' starting pitching was not good the last 2 days. Logan Allen, Tanner Bybee both pitched poorly, and if the Guardians are going to have long-term success this year, both of those guys, especially Tanner Bybee, need to be significantly better than they've been so far. They've both had one good start, 2 not good starts. But what I like that I've seen from the Guardians is offensively, they've been extremely resilient. I believe they're tied for 4th in runs scored per game. And they are tied for 17th in home runs per game after hitting 3 last night. The Naylor brothers became the first pair of brothers to hit home runs in the same game for the same team since the Upton brothers in 2013. They both got big RBIs in the 10th inning. That hit by Naylor. By the way, and I said this on UCSS, so if you're hearing it for the second time, I apologize, but it's okay because I thought it then. I still think it now. I don't understand. Well, I understand, but I disagree with the White Sox. So in the bottom of the 10th, so for those who don't know, obviously the Guardians were down 5-0, like they were the night. Not the same way because the White Sox didn't score 5 in the first, but they were down 5-0. They tied it up at 5. The White Sox took a 6-5 lead in the top of the 10th. In the bottom of the 10th, they start the inning with Jimenez at second, and Ramirez makes it out. I can't remember. Was it a fly out? I don't remember, but the runner didn't get moved over. So it's runner on second, 1 out, Josh Naylor up. And obviously Josh has been, arguably the Guardians' best hitter since the middle of last year. I mean, obviously Jose has the better track record overall, but since the middle of last year, you can argue that Naylor's been their best hitter and their most clutch hitter. So you're up a run, 6-5, and you've got a right-handed pitcher and our old buddy Brian Shaw, and you got Josh Naylor. Now, the following hitter, Will Brennan's a lefty too, but Josh Naylor's a way better hitter than Brennan. And they decide to pitch to Naylor. I thought that was a huge mistake. Now, I understand. I'm sure the argument is we don't want to put the go-ahead run on base. Okay, I get that. But to me, when I'm the road team, I got to try to win it now. I've got the lead. I can't worry about the lead run. I got to try to stop the tying run from getting home. And I think that the Guardians had a much better chance of bringing home the tying run by pitching to Naylor than they would have getting home the winning run by walking Naylor and then pitching to Brennan. They, I think, made a mistake. Josh Naylor thankfully made them pay. Bo Naylor put the final nail in the coffin, and the Guardians win. 9-3 on the season. The only team in the American League, actually the only team in baseball with a better record than the Guardians, is the team they're going to play this weekend, and that's the Yankees. So it should be a lot of fun. I don't think most people had the Guardians and the Pirates tied for the second best record in baseball after 2 weeks, but that's where we're at. Both 9-3. Yankees come in 10-3. They did lose to the Marlins yesterday. And so I'm looking forward to the Yankees being in town in a big 3-game series. The Guardians will pitch. I mentioned this briefly yesterday in the podcast, but the Guardians will move everybody up a day with the off day. They're gonna eventually have to make a decision on a 5th starter, but they'll be able to push off that decision till at least Monday, and really they could push it off till Tuesday. By Tuesday, they'll have to have somebody else start because they're playing 5 days in a row, unless there's a rain out. And there's actually a lot of rain on the forecast for this weekend. So we could potentially see a rain out today or tomorrow. A lot of, not today. They're not playing today, but tomorrow. I think there's rain in the forecast all weekend, if I remember. But hopefully they'll get the games in. But we will see Mackenzie Allen and Carrasco this weekend against the Yankees. So, but the Yankees pitching rotation is not no amazing rotation either. Now they've been decent, but the Yankees have their bullpen's been really good, and their bats have been good, and they got a lot of dangerous sluggers with Soto and Judge and Stanton, who's actually healthy. He won't be later in the year, but he is healthy now. And Rizzo's a slugger, and obviously my man Monzo's guy, Anthony Volpe, off to a good start this year as well. So that's what's happening. Obviously, the Cavs they did win yesterday, but they were playing a G League team. It was still embarrassing, and I have no faith in them, although I know some of my guys on UCSS think they could beat Orlando or Indiana, who are the teams they're most likely to play in the first round of the playoffs, before they get just absolutely destroyed by the Celtics in the second round. Let's get to some notes that have been sent my way via the YouTube chat. And again, if you want to join me, if you want to put your face on camera and ask a question, make a comment that way, I tweeted out a link on how you can do that. It's the last tweet I sent about 20 minutes ago, roughly. So go check it out. Brandon says, great UCSS today, Bull. Favorite lineup by far. Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate that. He also says, how about that defensive play from Rocchio? Yeah, Rocchio made a number of good plays. I can't believe he hit into that double play. That's after the Guardians had tied the game on the bases loaded hit by pitch to David Fry. They had a chance to take the lead then, and Rocchio into a double play, which was shocking. He's got great speed, but it was just unfortunately, a perfect ground ball for a double play there. But yeah, his defense has been sensational, and he's hit the ball well. I love it. I was hoping he'd get the starting job. He did, and so far he's run with it. I've been really, really impressed with what he's done so far. James says, I'm going to the game on Saturday to see Tristan strike out 7 Wankies. Yeah, I mean, Tristan was much better in his second start, but he's not missing a lot of bats. The velocity's still down. Now, it was up from his first start to his second start, but I am a little worried about McKenzie against this Yankee. Frankly, I'm worried about all 3 starters against the Yankee lineup right now because the Yankees are hot. I think eventually they'll cool off, and I don't believe in them because I don't like their pitching. And they have too many injury-prone players. But right now, they're relatively healthy, certainly with their key guys. So I'm a little worried about the Guardians, and right now they're hot. But I think if the Guardians are going to have success this weekend, they're going to have to score a lot of runs. I expect these games to be fairly high scoring. A couple people sending messages that OJ is dead. We are aware that OJ is dead. If you're old enough, you know how big a story that was 30 years ago. I shed no tears for that. Nikki says, when do you think the Guardians will call up Kyle Manzardo? I guess part of it depends on how well he's performing, right? I mean, it's not just the rules that have changed about, keeping guys in the minors to get service time. Yeah, that still applies to some degree, but there are also incentives for bringing guys up. And if you brought them up, so I don't think it's just about that. It's also about how well he's performing. So it depends. Right now, Kyle Manzardo on the season in 8 games, he's 5 for 27. So he's only hitting $185, an OPS of 598. I mean, that's not good. 1 home run, 5 ribbies in 8 games, 4 walks, 8 strikeouts. So he's scuffling a little bit. Now, and that could play a role. I mean, if he's batting $180 with no power another couple of weeks from now, they may continue to wait. It's not definite that he's got to be playing great to get called up. But if he's really struggling, sometimes a guy can be struggling in the minors, you call him up to the majors, and for whatever reason, he'll have success. But certainly not always the case. So we'll see. But at the moment, I would say my guess is, late April, early May, he eventually, because I think he'll pick it up. And I'll say 2 to 4 weeks, we'll see him up in the big leagues. Let's see. Stephen K. Adam, have you changed your mind yet that the young Guardians team didn't need Adam Duvall to be successful? I don't want a one-year player that's taking away from playing time for the youngsters. Well, not all the youngsters are going to be good. And most of the youngsters are unproven. And just because some are off to good starts doesn't mean a veteran wouldn't help. And they have some veterans in the lineup, like Ramon Laureano, who I don't think are any good. I think they're wasting at bats on him. I like Will Brennan, but I don't think he's a starter. I think they're wasting at bats on Estevan Florial. So, yes, Stephen. First of all, I don't know that I said that Adam Duvall would be the difference between them having a good season and a bad. I certainly didn't say that. But every little bit helps. And they're still short on power. The season is not determined in 2 weeks. They are still short in the lineup in the long run in terms of power. And so, yes, I would still like Adam Duvall on this team, but we know that's not happening. Wahoo fan, we know what Ford and Strong bring. What does Foreman have in the tank? I mean, he's young enough. Deontay Foreman is a poor man's Nick Chubb. He is the player that most resembles Nick Chubb in terms of style. He's not nearly as good, but he's the same style of player. Again, nobody's saying Adam Duvall is special, Stephen. I said he's got power, which he does. Don't worry about his batting average. Adam Duvall's not there for batting average. It's 2 weeks. Batting averages can change. Same thing I just said for Kyle Manzardo. Adolfo, best from Mexico. Do you know if Jim Schwartz is under contract? Yes. I don't know how long. I don't know offhand how many years Jim Schwartz has under contract, but he's certainly under contract for this year. Brendan, I see a power ranking with the Guardians in 10th. What do you think? Love listening to you both. Thank you, Brendan. I love that you are listening. Are the Guardians the 10th best? I mean, they should be higher based on the first few weeks of the season. They should be higher, but can they stay there? We'll see. I mean, I'm concerned about the starting pitching. The thing that's supposed to be the rock of this team has been the weakness so far. The bullpen's been very good. The lineup's been very good, but they're ultimately going to need Bybee, McKenzie, and Gavin Williams, especially when he comes back. Those 3 guys are going to have to be really good this year. If they're not, ultimately the Guardians will fall short. Let's see. I don't want anything taken away from Freeman. Listen, Freeman's a nice player. I'm fine if they got somebody better than Freeman, I'm fine with that. You'd find enough at bats. There's always at bats for guys. Nicky V, there is no reason to trade for a Rise. A Rise is a great hitter, but he's not what they're missing. I mean, if you get a Rise on the Guardians, fine. He's the best average hitter in baseball, but they need power, not a singles hitter. Yeah, I don't get telling me about David Fry and Arias and Arias at the DH spot doesn't excite me. Sorry. So there you go. Again, if you want to jump in, I tweeted out the link a little bit ago, and I will invite you into the mix. If you want to click on that link, you can join me to ask a question here live. So we'll get to that in just a minute if anybody wants to jump in. But, yeah, I mean, you got to remember that a season, that 2 weeks doesn't determine what the season is. So the Guardians' offense has been great the first 2 weeks. It doesn't mean it's going to be great all year. Guardians starting pitching has not been very good the first 2 weeks. It doesn't mean it's going to be bad the rest of the year. Bullpen, everything. It's baseball is all about adjustments constantly and the ups and downs. You can't judge a baseball team based on 2 weeks. You got to love what they've done through 2 weeks, and you got to love where they are through 2 weeks, but that's far from the whole picture. Steven says, Bull, could you see a trade midseason for a pitcher? I would hope so. And Edward, who says you're not going to get a power hitter with our budget. Well, the budget should be higher. Yes, you're right with the current budget. But again, Adam Duvall, you could have had for $3 million. Yeah, would I rather have somebody better than him? Sure. Spend more money. But at the very least, I could have gotten him. I could have kept Enyel De Los Santos instead of Scott Barlow. I'd be paying Enyel De Los Santos about $5 million less, and I could have spent that on Adam Duvall or somebody else in that range to get me a little more power. But listen, right now I'm not going to complain about it. I mean, I did because people are asking me about it. I think the Guardians should be in the market for a pitcher. I think they should be in the market for power. They should be trying to win. This division's wide open. Kansas City's playing well right now. Minnesota will be better as the season goes along, probably. Detroit's a decent team, but nobody in this division is that good. The Guardians can win this division even with the Bieber injury, and they should be aggressive on the trade front. And if that means trading some prospects for proven players, a starting pitcher, a hitter, then go do it. Last year they gave up, and I can't kill them. I like Kyle Manzardo. I don't think they were going to do anything last year, but they gave up on the season before it was over. They got to go the opposite way this year. The Guardians should be aggressive, and they should spend some money to make this team better. Especially if they – now, we'll see how they play. A month from now, when trades start heating up a little bit, certainly 6 weeks from now, when they really start heating up, if the Guardians have, fallen on hard times, it might be a different story. But if the team can play anywhere close to how it's played so far this year, then absolutely the front office and ownership owe it to the team, to the players, to the manager, and to the fans to be aggressive in the trade market. They've done it in the past. They should do it again. I've been saying this for weeks. The American League is wide open. It's not like the National League where you have the Dodgers and Braves. I know the Yankees are off to a great start. The Guardians pitching is just as good as the Yankees, if not better. Obviously, the Bieber thing hurts, but I like the Guardians rotation still. These young guys more than the Yankees guys. Nobody. The Astros are off to a terrible start. I know they'll be better, but there's no dominant. I don't think there's going to be a dominant team in the American League, and so the Guardians got to be aggressive and should go for it and should try to win and not sit on their freaking hands all year. Edward says, Bull, do you think both Nailers have 30 home run potential? I think that's a lot to ask. I think it's possible. I mean, Josh Naylor has 30 home. Josh definitely has 30 home run potential. Just with his body type, he often has some injuries that I think they're more, guys I expect to routinely hit in the 20s. But could they potentially hit 30? Sure. I mean, it's very rare that a catcher hits 30 home runs. You don't see it that much, but I think it's possible. I think that's their upside. Got to stay healthy. That's been a little tricky at times for Josh Naylor, but kudos to Josh. He has really taken his game to another level the last 2 years. And finally, CT says, love today and every day. I love all of you guys. Thank you all for joining me, as always, live here in the bullpen. And don't forget, I mentioned it before, but I want to remind you, during each round of the Masters, Bet Rivers is offering live betting specials. Go to the app, check out the details, discover what bonus awaits each day of the tournament. This is your opportunity to take advantage of Bet Rivers' good nature with great live betting specials. It's fun. You watch it, you watch the Masters, you listen to it, whatever you're doing, and you can play along. It's awesome. Trust me, take advantage of it. Thanks for joining me, everybody. Thanks for all the messages in the chat. Zach asked, what's your parlay? I mentioned earlier, Zach, you probably weren't here. For now on, I'm putting out parlays on Tuesdays and Fridays. So my next parlay will be out tomorrow. I hit my first Thursday parlay 3 for 3. I did not. My second parlay last week I missed. I'm sorry. I got 2 out of 3. But I lost on, I think it was Seth Lugo strikeouts. He didn't get the over there. But I will put out a video at some point tomorrow morning or early tomorrow afternoon, courtesy of Bet Rivers, I'll put out a quick video of like about a minute, and I'll have my parlay for you for tomorrow. So hope I can get you back in the win column there, Zach, and everybody else. Thanks, everybody. I will talk to you tomorrow on UCSS, back on the podcast on Monday. Where else but right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. Thanks to the guys, Monzo and Max, for producing today. Thanks to all of you for asking your questions and joining me. Please hit the subscribe button to the bullpen with Adam the Bull if you haven't done so already. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next time.